Welcome to the Be Empowered podcast with your host, Graham Hopkins. My goal is to help you regain your power by bridging the gap between who you think you are right now and who you really are. In simple language, that is like making your childhood dreams come true. This is for those who want to make an impact in their lives but don't know how to get there. Be ensured, when you know and feel connected to your spiritual mind, you master your world.
Christine, you are a great example of how to take back your power and be empowered. This is like bridging the gap between the illusion that you had prior to contracting cancer to embracing your vision of purpose going forward. I really want to honour you and congratulate you. Christine Phillips, welcome to this interview.
Wow, thank you, Graham. I'm very honoured to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
Christine studied metaphysics and psychology, and yet when she contracted cancer maybe just a year ago, she started feeling depressed and maybe unworthy. But I've noticed that Christine's really come through that stage. So Christine, can you tell us a little bit about what led up to contracting cancer? What actually transpired in your life prior to that event?
Yeah, sure. Well, starting from my earlier life and having an unhappy childhood and coming from a place of having been abused as a child, I've never felt confident about myself, and that's one of the things I've struggled with a lot in my life, is believing in myself and feeling confident about myself. And so I have always strived and struggled. My life's been a whole journey of struggle, and that's just something I thought was normal before I started to open up into who I'm being now, who I am recognizing and embracing in myself right now. And I became a parent very young in my life because I thought that having children would be the thing that would give me what I needed, and I was always looking for what I needed to come from outside of me. I've been married and divorced twice, thinking again that relationship would be the thing that would give me what I needed, and no, nothing came from that. As a librarian, that was the main job in my life until just a year ago. But while I was doing that job, I studied psychology and also metaphysics. I came across metaphysics in my search to find out what is wrong with me. Why can't I be happy in my life? Why can't I live my life in a way that feels good for me? Why do things not work out in my life? And so I struggled with my studies for a long time. It took me a long time to qualify, but well, not to qualify, but to get to the point where I would even take the exam because of my lack of confidence. But finally, I think I was in my very early, late 40s when I qualified, and decided in my early 50s that I wanted to take my business further, that I wanted to not just see clients on a one-to-one basis and do the workshops that I do, but I also wanted to reach a broader audience and take my message further. And so I started a business course. So I was working full-time. I was seeing the clients on a one-to-one basis, doing groups, and still working full-time, and doing this business course. So my whole focus was really into achieving and doing and getting on, and that was when the cancer appeared. I just had a routine mammogram, and got the shock of my life, because it was the very last thing that I ever expected to happen to me, because despite all of the other so-called failures, my health had always been really, really good. So for my health to take a downturn, that was the greatest shock of my whole life, and I just didn't know what to do at that point. I thought that all of the studies and the understanding of metaphysics would make sure now that my life was okay, that I was in tune with what I was supposed to be in tune with. I was doing things right, and my whole self-concept, the whole belief in myself just completely collapsed, because I thought, what am I doing wrong? How can this happen to me?
So, Christine, when you heard that you had contracted cancer, how did you feel? I mean, how did that make you feel? I mean, when you were going through that, it must have been amazing.
It felt like the end of my life. It felt as though everything that I tried to do was never going to work, and there was no point in carrying on. I felt that I was going to die. You know, I felt so helpless, so depleted, so. Wow, I was in a very, very dark place, more than dark, but yeah, I was struggling to make sense of it, struggling to really get my head around what now, you know, how do I deal with this? What do I do now?
Because I've known you for about 3 years now, and I've noticed a big change in your whole presence and your outlook on life. And can you tell us a little bit about how you started developing a sense of self after that announcement, hearing that you had cancer?
Yeah, sure. Well, basically, what I began to realize is that even though I had thoughts about what was happening to me, that wasn't the only truth. I was forced in a way to look deeper into myself and into my life in a way that I hadn't done before. I was meditating more. I was visioning what it is that I wanted in my life, because I realized I didn't want things to carry on the way they were. I just didn't really know what I wanted, but I knew what I didn't want, and it was in the knowing what I didn't want. It was knowing in the contrast between what I wanted and what I didn't want. I knew somewhere there was something that I could work with, and so trying to bridge the gap between what I was experiencing here and now and what I was wanting to experience, which was wellness and fullness and joy and just being more kind of integrated in myself, which I had thought I had achieved previously, but obviously that just completely collapsed as I went into this experience of cancer. And so rather than sort of look for a fix outside of myself, which is what the hospital treatments would have been calling me towards, and I'm not saying that that's wrong, but it was really looking deeply into what really is important to me right now. What do I really want? And it wasn't what the recommendations of the hospital were giving me. It was something that was calling me from inside to really hone into who am I, because I realized I'm more than just a body, that cancer was happening in my body, but I am not my body. It's not I who has the cancer. It is a higher aspect of me that is really aware of what's going on in my body. And so I as I understand metaphysically, that it is my thoughts that manifest as my body. It is my whole concept of who I am mentally or emotionally that has an effect on who my body is, or what my body is physically. So I started to tune into the health that I wanted. I started to tune into the life that I wanted, and by doing that, by using meditation and creative visualization, that's one of the ways that I managed to even things out for myself and calm myself into the present moment, rather than looking at who who I was going to be or who I was trying to make myself be and who it was right for me to be. It was just, okay, I can only take one step at a time, one moment at a time, one day at a time. And that was really what held me in that presence of the moment. And from that moment, that's where I realized the power just goes from strength to strength.
Mm. Christine, how much did acceptance play a role in all of this?
Wow, that was a big part. And that's something that still continues today, that I never accepted myself for who I am. I was always thinking that I should be more, I should be better, I should do better, I should have better things in my life, or I should strive for more. And I guess with my belief in myself, my low self-esteem, that I felt that I wasn't good enough. So therefore, that eventually is, in my opinion, is what kind of manifests as some kind of illness. I'm not saying that was the cancer, but to me that was the possibility. And so what can I do now other than accept who I am, who I'm being, what's happening to me, and deal with it, in the moment. So yeah, accepting myself as I am with the cancer, not I'm better without the cancer, that okay, cancer is here and so am I. And that was where the power started to come in, that the cancer wasn't more important or more powerful than I am. The cancer was something that is appearing in the consciousness of who I am.
Excellent. So my understanding is that you overcame this cancer without chemotherapy or any radiation.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the decision you made. When did you? Well, was that a predetermined decision, or was that something you just felt you didn't want to partake in?
Yeah. How I arrived at that, I didn't really know what to do when I first had the experience, and I went along with the treatment that the hospital were recommending, which was to remove the lump, because I thought, I don't know what else to do here. I was too afraid to do anything else. And after they removed the lump, they got complete clearance around the tumour, so there were no cancer cells in my lymph nodes. So it seems to me like, okay, great, the cancer's gone now. But the radiologist and the oncologist were both recommending that I should have the radiotherapy and chemotherapy, and it just felt wrong. I'm thinking, why would I want to do that? Because from what I had studied about chemotherapy, in what I found out is that it depletes the immune system, and what I wanted to do was build up my immune system rather than undermine it. And so when I tried to explain this to the oncologist, of course they didn't understand, but one of the questions I asked him, which really helped me make the decision, was, okay, so if I have the chemotherapy, am I guaranteed that cancer will never come back? Because that was one of the things they were giving me why to have it, because cancer might come back if you don't have the chemotherapy. And I thought, okay, so if I have it, am I guaranteed it doesn't come back? And they said, well, no. So I thought, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense to me. And it was the same with the radiotherapist. They offered for me to have the treatment, and I was concerned, having had rheumatic fever as a child, I was concerned that, which affected my heart, by the way, and I was concerned that having the radiotherapy would affect my lungs and my heart. So I asked, if I have the radiotherapy, is there a way that you can not let it reach my heart or my lungs? And they said, well, no, because your breast is right in front of that, and there is a risk that it will affect your heart and lungs. And again, this real feeling inside of me was like, no, this just doesn't feel sensible to me. And as I've thought at the time, I was so confused, and I really didn't know what the best. If I don't take the treatment, I might die. If I take the treatment, I might die. And it made me realize, actually, we don't ever know when we're going to die. We don't ever know what the cause of death is going to be. And so I thought, what would be the point in going along that path? Why not follow the instincts that are coming up within me? And later on, a lot later on in my journey, I realized that could have been what the journey was all about. It was to really value the life that I already had in a way that I wasn't valuing myself or my life. and had never done so previously.
How did you overcome that confusion?
Well, that took time. It was a day-by-day process of tuning into myself, reaching into the deepest part of me, envisioning what I wanted, which was holding my focus on health and well-being, and when the doubts and the fears came in, just allowing them to be there, because I couldn't stop the doubts and the fear being there, but I knew from my own previous practice that just being with what's here now, and regardless of what it's feeling like, regardless of whether it's doubt and fear or enthusiasm for the future, to just hold that, to just be there with it, and to choose. So I'm choosing, do I want the doubt and the fear? How do I feel when I'm feeling the doubt and the fear? It didn't feel so good. I could feel the energy in my body would feel restricted and depleted, and if I fell into the optimism of, how would I feel if I had full health again, then I would get a real surge of energy through my body, and it just felt like that was the right thing to do. There was no doubt in how the energy levels in my body felt when I looked at the difference between the thoughts that were coming in about it.
So when you studied metaphysics, Christine, you would have probably studied the observer effect.
Yes.
My question is, did you study that, and did you use it, and can you explain it simply to people listening in that want answers, should they contract cancer like you have?
Yeah, well, I'll certainly have a go at that. Yes, I did know about the observer perspective, and yes, I did use the observer perspective, because I felt it came more naturally at that point in the situation of adversity and real crisis. Somehow that observer perspective showed up in a way that it hadn't before. It was as if my life had gone so far out of control in my mental understanding that I was observing that my life had become out of control. But there was a part of me that I realized after some time that had been monitoring me and being with me, observing me all the way through this without me really realizing, wow, even though this cancer is happening, it's actually not happening in all of me. There's a part of me that feels totally unaffected by what's going on in my body. And that was the thing that really gave me the courage to continue with that trajectory, that I am more than a body. I am more than just a body. I am the consciousness wherein this body is being recreated in every moment. And how would I describe how to access that? Would be through the tool of meditation. Personally, I don't think there, unless it's a spontaneous occurrence, and which does happen for some people, but in my experience, it was definitely tuning in to a higher dimension of myself in my meditations on a daily practice. It had to be a practice, because as soon as I stopped practicing, then everything felt like it was falling apart again, which to me was just my mind thoughts encroaching upon the space of consciousness. So really, I feel that whatever I focus on is where my attention goes, and so therefore I can either give attention to that which builds and supports me, or that which depletes and erodes me.
I describe what you're tapping into as being intelligence, energy, and information.
Absolutely, I would agree.
Yeah?
Yeah, totally. It's the energy of my body, the energy that is the underlying energy of all things. It being consciousness, so it's infinitely aware of everything that's occurring within itself, and me as part of that. So therefore, there's a part of me that's very much aware of me and what's going on in me, and the information is in me. I call it the omniscience of being, that the energy that we are is omniscient, it's omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent, meaning it's the one and only power, it's everywhere evenly present, and it is all information that exists, past, present, and future, all in this one moment of now.
I think the viewers are starting to see why I commended you in what you're doing. I mean, this power that we're tapping into, it's a free gift, but we have to position ourselves, Christine, and that's what I see you have done.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
done it successfully.
Yeah, and I think we do that. Positioning ourselves is something we do through choice. We make a conscious choice. What is it we want? And where am I compared to what it is that I want? And I'm making steps towards reaching that place. As it's not that I'm coming out of myself and going somewhere, it's actually accepting that that is already part of the experience and wanting that to be more of my experience.
Do you see that when people look outside of themselves, you know, that they're looking at their body with their five senses and in a physical way, but when you look inside, it's a different energy that you're tapping into. How would you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. The way I would put that is when I'm looking outside of myself, I'm looking for something to add to me, which makes me automatically believe that I'm not enough, that I'm not okay as I am, and that's where the acceptance comes in. It's you know, I'm here, I've lived the 56 years that I've lived so far, and what has brought me here. I can be very much under the impression that it's the things that I've done that's brought me here, but when I recognize how many times my life felt out of control for me in the past, I realized it actually wasn't me necessarily. I mean, I have had a part in that, of course, but there's been a bigger part of me that was the part that got me from gestation to birth. You know, no one interfered with what was going on for my physical, emotional, mental development there, and so that has just continued. And very much we learn in life to interfere with that and to try and make our experience different to how it is and want it to be different to how it is, rather than just accept that life is always working for us. And it may not be, we may not see it in a way that we imagine it to be. We may think that life working for me means that I have loads of money, I have everything that I need always, and that I never go through any hard times. But I understand it to be different to that. That life is life. It has the polarities of what appears to be working and what appears not to be working. But it's always, always, always calling us home to the place where we originate, that consciousness that is us, and for us to embrace and express, allow more of that expression to come through us.
It certainly has a lot to do with value and how you value yourself. One question I wanted to ask you while you're talking about being a young child, what visions did you have as a young child? How did you see your life playing out?
Wow, very good question there. Because of the experience that I had of the child abuse, I kind of had a double life. I had this life that I had to be and do what I felt I was being conditioned to be and do, which from my family, there was never really any real encouragement to become learned or to take a higher path in education. It was more about being a woman and having a family, and sort of that being most of my ability. And in my early years, that's how I saw myself. But as I've grown older, I've realized that I do have far more ability than I ever imagined, and I'm seeing it coming out more every day as I work with more and more people. But the other thing that I had as a child was, in order to cope with the abuse, I had to find a way to be with myself who was unsupported by the very people who were supposed to be there supporting me. Now, I know that my parents did the best they could with the information they had at the time. You know, I love both my parents, and it was a very, very tough time because, yeah, you know, what we want isn't always what we get from our parents. There are many people in the world that haven't had the experience of their parents that they would have liked. However, I see that as the very thing that caused me to search for what I'm now experiencing in my life. I feel if I hadn't had that experience, I would nowhere be who I am right now. Yes, it was difficult. Yes, it was painful, traumatic at times, but I believe that from that adversity, it has sort of forced me to look at life and to look for more. Yeah, to look for more from life than I would have just gone along with anyway. Like, you know, the 2.5 children, the career, and living just living the ordinary life. You know, based in our career and what we achieve outside, what status we achieve, and all of that. To me, what's more important is being the best I can be, being at peace with who I am, loving myself, and in all of that transferring to all of the relationships that I have, family relationships, colleague relationships, client relationships. That to me is where it's at.
Christine, I describe that when we bridge this gap, it's when our soul and spirit come together and we feel connected. With that becomes a flow of energy, and with the flow of energy comes benefits. I often think that if people knew what benefits there is to living a be-empowered life, then everybody would be doing it. Can you describe what are some of the benefits that has happened to you in the last year since you've had this dramatic change of perspective?
Yes, I can. Meeting people, meeting what I would call meeting the right person, being in the right space at the right time to meet the right person that you need for your next step to unfold for you. I was searching for a way to find tools that would help me. So I think going on some of the retreats with Christian Pankhurst, which is somewhere on one of those where I met you. So really, when I think about not just that, there are other things as well, but if I just focus on that for a moment, there are all of the people that I met on those retreats. There are all of the gifts and the benefits that I received from Christian as a teacher and many other teachers before and after that. But really, I'm sort of choosing that because I really admire his work and the way these things come, these opportunities just come as a way of meeting me where I am. I'm looking for something, I'm looking for improvement, and I don't always know the thing that I need to improve the experience of life that I'm having, but life knows, this consciousness knows, this spirit in me knows, and so it gives me the feeling, an impulse to do something, and I follow that impulse. When I was looking at the work that Christian was offering, how to accelerate your awakening, that was like, wow, yeah, that feels really good. I'd love to do something like that. And that work has continued this year, taking my own business to a level where I'm feeling that I want to put my message out there. I want to I feel good enough now to do that. Whereas before, that's one of the benefits that's come with the teaching, the training, and the experience of integration. That there's something in me wants more than just an ordinary life. And that's one of the benefits, that I can focus on what I want. I can open up to learning more than I thought I could ever learn. So that infinite being in me is expressing more. It appears as though I'm learning, and yes, that is taking place. But then, how do I use that learning to put myself, to express that out into the field? I feel more confident about myself. I could never have done an interview like this a year ago. To be able to speak about myself from a perspective of not being pulled into the experience and the traumas of the experience, to just to be able to be again in the observer position of my life, that it doesn't mean that I'm so detached that I don't feel what's going on in my life. I very much feel what's going on for me and for other people, but I just don't feel that I'm pulled into being disempowered by all the thoughts and the opposites that come in there, all of the fear and the negativity and the I don't know what to do, that sort of brings up, that kind of focus brings up. So I feel that the positive, not just positive thoughts, but focusing on what is wanted, that's the real message. Not I want to be positive, because yeah, positivity does play a part in it, but life isn't always positive. So my concern is that if I always go for the positive, then when something so-called negative happens, how am I going to feel about myself if I should only be positive? So it is really embracing and being with everything that comes, being big enough to know that I am enough. In that enoughness, I have all the skills and the tools and the abilities that I need to face what's coming to me in life.
Well, you're learning to take your power back. That's what's so significant about it.
And it's an ongoing journey. It doesn't just happen overnight. It's something that we have to continue working with.
Yeah. And Christine, I think it was 1 month ago, you told me some exciting news about reconciliation.
Yeah, now that was really exciting, because that's about my father, having been sexually abused as a child, and my father playing a part in that. I didn't have a good relationship with my dad. I never had the feeling of my dad being there for me. I never had the relationship with my father that I saw lots of my friends had, and I always had this need from partners that went beyond a partner, because obviously I needed that, that role of father, but I wasn't consciously aware of that was one of the things that was interfering in my relationship. And so what brought this on was my partner's father is at the end stage of his life, and we were going to visit him, and I was watching how my partner and his father were having this kind of ending process, and it just, observing that just made me think, oh, what would happen if my father got to the end of his life and didn't have the opportunity to do that with me? And if he did want that, how would I feel about it? Because in that moment, I was kind of thinking, well, I'm not so sure that I want to do that. I'm not so sure that I'm ready for that. But then as I thought about it more, I realized there was an impulse coming up in me that did want that. That is the thing that I've been looking for all of my life, that I wanted my dad in my life, but it was me that had turned away from him because of the pain that I felt with what happened between us. So I followed this impulse and tried to contact my dad. I couldn't get hold of him. He changed his number. I thought, oh my God, he's probably moved now. It was over 10 years since I'd spoken to him or had any dealings with him. And I didn't know how to get in touch with him. I tried to get in touch with him through a sister, a half-sister, that I knew used to live next door to him. I couldn't get hold of her either. And this was like a real, oh no, what's going to happen? I started to feel really sad that I'd lost an opportunity. So I meditated with this, and I said, well, if I want this, then maybe it's because it's something that needs to happen. And please, let's just relax into this and see how it can unfold. So I decided I was going to go and find to the place where he used to live to see whether he would still be there. I went there with a friend who came to support me really lovingly from my heart circle, but she waited in the car just so that if I didn't find him and I was feeling upset, I would have somebody there to support me in that disappointment. So I went to his door, knocked, there was no reply. Went next door to where I thought my sister still lived, there was no reply. No, a person came to the door, and the young man said, oh no, she doesn't live here anymore, she's moved. And so I went back to my dad's door, and I thought, oh, maybe he's just elderly and hasn't got to the door very quickly and that he would still get there. And no, he didn't. But just as I was standing there waiting for my dad to answer the door, another young man came to the door next door. And now that the young man that lived next door had come back to his front door, I felt the impulse to go and ask him, do you know where my sister has moved to? And he said, yes, she's actually still on this road, but she's down the other end on the other side. I'm not sure what number, but I think it's the first house. So I had a lead. So off I went to find this house. I didn't know the number or, you know, really much about it, but something was just taking me there. I went to what I thought was her house, and I knocked on the door, and again, there was no answer. And I was really beginning to feel like, oh, this just isn't going to work out. But I thought, well, you know, there might be something else you can do. So I was just standing there thinking, what can I do? Shall I knock next door? Maybe they will know. Just as I did that, my sister pulled up in her car. And when she saw me, we hadn't seen each other for 10 years either, and when she saw me, it was like, oh, what are you doing here? I wouldn't have been driving past my house at this point. I'm actually on the way to the hospital to see Dad. And I went, that's who I've come to see. I would like to see. She says, get in, come on, let's go see him. So we just, in that moment, just went off to the hospital, no planning, just there we went. And when I walked into the hospital ward, my dad obviously wasn't expecting to see me. When he saw me, all of the things that I ever wanted from my dad came at me in that moment. He just held his arms open and called my name and welcomed me totally. He said, oh, if only you knew how much this means to me, how good it is to see you, how much I've been wanting to see you, how much I've been thinking about you. And tears were just rolling down his face at that. And I wanted to say streaming and rolling and ended up strolling, but the tears were just coming down his face. And of course the whole welcoming, the whole holding his arms out to embrace me. And in the embrace, as I went to his bed and I allowed him to embrace me, I suddenly got this real feeling that it was me that was shutting him out. It wasn't what he had done had locked me out of him. It was something I had been doing. So I felt to say to him, when he was apologizing to me, I'm so sorry for what happened between us. You're so important to me. You don't know how much it means to me to have you here now. I heard myself say, Dad, I'm so sorry for shutting you out. I did it to punish you, but I realized that all I've done is punish myself. And in that moment, I completely melted into a total forgiveness of both him and me. And I was crying, he was crying, but it was a joyful crying. It was sorrowful as well, but the sorrow wasn't as much as the joy. Yeah, we were sorry for everything that happened, but more so, we were so joyful that it was now over. All of that sorrow was now over, and we could go from now on to the future. And I tell you, Graham, 2 weeks previously to that situation, if someone had told me that that was how it was going to be, I wouldn't have believed it was possible. I wouldn't have believed that it could feel that good or be that easy.
It's an amazing story, Christine.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Thank you.
So, Christine, you've read my book, The Manifesto of Your Inspirational Mind. How has that helped you on this journey?
Oh, massively, Graham. Can I even begin to say how? One of the things that I found it has done is, first of all, it's your understanding. Your understanding to me confirmed, although I didn't need confirmation in this, but obviously we have a human part that's always wanting more. So all of the ways that you explained the way things fit together with the levels of who we are, but the main thing that really helped me was where you go with your book towards the end of it, where we are not just a spirit and a body, but there is a relationship between the brain, the patterns of our brain, our thought patterns, our neural networks, and also how that affects the cells in our body, how we get an emotional response or an emotional addiction in our body. So the science of it is what has really that really inspired me, because I understand that there's been spiritual teachings around for a very, very long time, since ancient times, and they haven't really reached the masses in the way that I feel they can. But with the onset of science and the inclusion of how science is now proving how things work in our bodies, I think that's what's really opening up the arena, and that's the thing that really helped me. It's now I feel like I've got something tangible, something really workable to use as a tool, not just for myself, but also to help other people.
Well, Christine, I may have written a book, but your story inspires me. So thanks for sharing it. It's been a great interview. Can we just finish up by talking about where you want to go in getting this message out there? Because once you start feeling connected, you want to tell everybody. And I know that that's something you want to do. So how are you travelling in regards to that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's that feeling of wanting to share my message with everybody. It's something that has come up for me time and time again over the past year. And I had in the past wondered how that was going to happen, what can I do, and done the things that I can, done a business course and obviously learned how to take those steps. But I really feel that one of the important things is to think about what is it that I'm wanting to share. And I think that the purpose of life is joy. My purpose, my message is to want to be in touch with this joy that I am, and I want to reach as many people in that joy. So whether it's through a podcast like this, through another webcast, whether it's through my website, having videos on my website or courses that people can do on my website, whether it's through books that I'm writing, I'm starting an ebook. So there are all these things that I can do, but really it's following the footsteps, following the impulses that are leading me to and leading me to and attracting to me the experiences that I want. So I'm programming my mind with my feeling as I'm visualizing what I want, as I'm getting the feeling of what I want, and I'm thinking about the things that I want. I know that those thoughts are sending messages out into the universe, and the feeling is drawing back that experience to me. So as I'm focusing on what I'm wanting, as I'm envisioning, creating visions around what I want, and I'm taking opportunities and offers that come in, being in the right place at the right time again, that's one of the ways that I allow that journey to continue.
So how can people get in contact with you? I know you're still working on your website, so I mean, do you want to leave your email address or some other means of contact you?
Absolutely.
We'll put it below this podcast so people can either contact you directly or maybe come through me.
Fantastic, thank you, Graham. That would be wonderful. My email address is connectwithchristine@gmail.com.
That's a simple one.
Yeah, and I chose it because I'm connecting with Source. So if you're wanting to connect with Source, come connect with me and I'll help you connect with Source. So connectwithchristine@gmail.com.
Yeah, so inspiring, Christine. Thank you so much for the interview, and thanks to everybody else for joining the Be Empowered podcast. I'm your host, Graham Hopkins. Before we go, could I ask you to do a big favour for me? If you could leave a review on iTunes. I'm talking to everybody here, Christine.
Yeah.
Because that is how this podcast will become more popular and therefore reach more people. And this message on how to transform lives by managing energy will get out to more people. If you'd like to hear more about the concepts that Christine and I have shared today, like being connected, being in the flow, and feeling more intuitive, you can go to Amazon and purchase my book called The Manifesto of Your Inspirational Mind, or you can go and download a free ebook called Know Your True Value and Worth at www.beempoweredgroup.com. So everybody, thanks for joining us. On behalf of your guests, Christine Phillips, and your host, Graham Hopkins, We both wish you a wonderful future of freedom, peace, and abundance.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Be Empowered podcast. For more on regaining your power by bridging that gap between who you think you are right now and who you really are, go to www.beempoweredgroup.com and enter your name and email address to receive a free ebook and get notified of any upcoming podcasts. Remember, when you know and feel connected to your spiritual mind, you master your world. Changing your energy transforms your life.